with my Vans on. They gon' let me rock cause I got morals I'm gon' stand on.
This is part 4 of the Coach Ken and Coach Vaughn show. And we were going to go into details about our teams, but in the opposite, meaning that I was going to cover the Grizzlies, he's going to cover the Hawks. We just started talking about Zach Edey. We got to stop right there because we've been listening to too many podcasts, and I read a lot of different scouting reports. And I feel like, personally, me and Coach Vaughn are the only ones that's seeing what Zach Edey is. And I don't know what others are seeing. So I just want to get into what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and then Coach Vaughn, we're going to show you a scouting report. I'm going to let you discuss it in detail, and then I'll eventually discuss my scouting report in detail. But I'm calling him out. Barlow, I'm calling you out. 80, was it 68 in the field or something like that? I'm calling you out. No ceiling, not necessarily the guys who did the Edey podcast, but no ceiling in general. Their entire cast of crew. Not the ones who did the Edey podcast or the Clean Lean podcast. They're a little different. But the others, I'm calling you out. I'm calling out every single person with a Edey scout out. Because I have not heard Edey correctly identified yet by one scout, or one draft nick. And then when I'm listening to people that scouted before, it's all over the place. But yet when I hear the NBA community, well, there's some top 10 teams, some teams that have a top 10 grade on it. So that it's clear that what I see, Vaughn, others are seeing. So we're going to call you out. And the reason why we're going to call you out is because here's what I've been hearing him mislabeled at. I've been hearing him compared to Boban Bojanovic. I've been hearing him compared I've been hearing him say his game is outdated. I've heard that from so many different people. I've heard that he's lumbering and slow. I may agree with the lumbering part, but he's not slow. He's not slow. He moves his feet and he moves his feet. If you time it, it's good. It don't look slow, but it works.
Faster in the end.
I've heard him like all I hear is mislabeled. Like we talked about it in part 3, Angel Reese. And I'm going to say that Zach Edey is the Angel Reese of this draft in the fact that he is completely mislabeled. And when he gets to the NBA, everything that we saw in college is going to translate to the NBA. And we're going to talk about those things. Coach Vaughn, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to let you talk about your scouting report, and then I'm going to my scouting report. But Coach Vaughn, I'm going to share your scouting report on the screen, all right? So
yes,
let me, okay?
I'll let you know.
Can you see your scouting report?
Yeah, there we go. I can see it. So you talked about those things that translate to the NBA. What I think we have a tendency to do with players is we talk a lot about what won't translate, and we allow that to dominate the conversation. But instead of talking about the things that will translate, the things that they're good, great, or average at, then what will translate. For a center, he has some of the best traits and most important traits that you need. He's a great rebounder and screener. Basically die on his screens. If you're not dying on his screens, to pick one. You're either going to have to go over or you're going to have to go under. But you're not going through him. Like it's not happening. And if you try to go through him, typically it's going to be a foul, or typically you're going to be so caught up with him. When you're playing in the NBA with guards like Trey, like Ja, just talk about our teams, they're going to be into their shot or into their sweet spot before you even get back into the play. So like his screening and rebounding is super important to me, especially his offensive rebound. He's constantly putting himself into position, even in playing drop coverage. He has a great IQ of knowing when to not chase the block and when to just get into rebounding position. Because people don't understand. I was watching JJ and LeBron's podcast, and they actually talked about drop coverage on the conference finals episode, and just explaining what drop coverage is to people, because I don't think people understand it. And it's literally what the word says, drop coverage. So that means I'm dropping to the rim, and my goal is to protect the rim and to basically challenge anything near the smile. Anything in that gray area, I can decide to contest it, or I can leave it open, like basically what the defense is calling for. So I think people, a lot of times when they watch Zach Edey's film, they see him dropping, but they don't understand that's literally a part of the concept. If they're going to hit these long twos all night and beat us, so be it. It's one of the most low percentage shots on the basketball court at almost any level. And if a team is going to beat you, they were meant to beat you that day. If they're going to beat you, shooting long twos the entire game. My scouting report really focused on the offensive rebounding, the screening, the physicality, and his effectiveness through physicality. A lot of times people come into the league and they're bothered by athleticism and physicality. That's not going to be the case. Edey is actually going to surprise a lot of people when he steps into the league. The way people talk about Steven Adams, the way people talk about these guys in the league that they come into contact with, and they say, wow, that guy's strong. He's a brick house. There's going to be a lot of that when Zach Edey steps out on that floor. You know what I mean? And I think I'm going to let you talk a little bit about my scouting report as well. So I'm going to let you pick up from right there.
All right, so I'm just going to read it and just co-sign what you're saying. So strongest man on the floor, that's fact. Like, the dude is strong. He has a lot of functional strength. He doesn't have what we call like just pure strength. He has functional strength. He is strong. He is legit strong. And he has the tree trunks, man. He does more damage than you do damage to him.
Yeah.
Of course, you mentioned that he could be potentially one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. I completely agree. He has a really good second jump. So that was a really good catch in the earning. I really thought that was a good catch. You don't hear other scouts mention it. You don't hear any other evaluator mention that his second jump is good. Obviously, he embraced physicality. He's effective against double teams in the post and the board. That's something that stands out. He is pretty effective in it. Exceptional balance. Balance and body control is something that this guy has at an elite level. And you almost have to have it at elite level if you're going to have to make up for the fact that you lack poor fluidity. You almost have to. Strong hands. Now, some people will go at his hands in terms of when he's in the post and he drops it below his waist. But I will say, when he keeps the ball up, chest high or high up, he doesn't really have those issues. So,
and mine is more of what you talked about, and I think part two, where you talked about the hands on the move.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to rolling, or when it comes to rebounding, when it comes to catching bad passes, I think he's really good at catching those passes on the move.
He's elite at, but he's average when he's in the post. Whereas someone like Boban is elite. Boban can pass. Boban can get the ball in the post. He can dominate the post. He can pass out the post. The ball's like a little grape. It's like an orange ball to him. It's just like an orange, like a little orange to him. And that's why I don't like the comparisons between Boban. Man, Boban is so much better at some of these things. But Boban, come on, y'all got to understand something, man. Boban don't have no athleticism. Boban got no athleticism. Boban, remember one idiot? I'm sorry, but this big time idiot on the Hawks. This dude thinks that every time you tell him about Zach Edey, he's slow. He's not a modern center. He's not this. He's like a robot of idiocy. And so this dude constantly is telling everybody that he's just too unathletic to play the game. He's just too unathletic to change the direction. I'm like, dude, be real with yourself. I'm timing this. I'm literally timing this. I got a timer. I'm timing his movement. And I'm like, this is faster than Gobert.
Yeah.
And like, I'm watching this and like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, what are you talking about? I'm timing his movements. His movements are faster than Gobert, who you would admit is one of the best drop defenders in terms of movement. But drop defenders, of course. But drop defenders.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to I keep trying to figure it out. And I keep saying it, man, it's the fluidity. The lack of fluidity, because closeouts are bad. His closeouts are really bad. Like, his closeouts are world-class bad. Like, for somebody that's 7, and on top of that, for somebody that's 7'5" with a 7'11" wingspan, his closeout probably some of the worst closeouts I've seen. That's a problem. I do feel like fluidity affects his closeouts, just like I feel like fluidity affects his on-ball ability. But when he has his arm shoulder high and everything like that, he moves really well. The problem is when his arms are down and he has to bring them all the way up. It's like you're watching a man fight gravity.
Yeah, and I think that comes with, like I said in my scouting report, he does very well when he's stopping a drive and then he has to run out to the perimeter and contest. On a lot of those plays, he's leaving his feet. With most basketball players, if you catch them selling out for a three-point shot and you go past them, it's going to make them look silly and unathletic.
Yeah.
But when he stays down on his feet, he's damn near immovable.
He's going to get by. He's really hard
Exactly.
because I think people underestimate how well he moves.
Yes.
And the testing results speak volumes for how well he moves.
And
I
how
keep
he
telling you
recovered.
something. This V-Spark is not a joke. Like, I know some people want to say Azubuike had the best V-Spark ever. So, does that matter? Wrong. It does matter. Because Azubuike had terrible lateral movement. His lateral movement and his short movement and deep movement was terrible. What was elite about Azubuike was his size, his physicality, his length, his hands with his vertical. Azubuike had a 41-inch vertical. Azubuike, a three-quarter sprint was one of the best you've ever seen from any center. When it came to run and jump, that boy can go. The problem with Azubuike is he can't move.
And he didn't have
and he didn't have it up here. But he really couldn't move. He couldn't move. He was like stuck in sand. And that's not Edey. I see Edey get going. Okay, we saw literally 4 straight teams. Grambling, Utah State. Who was the other one? Gonzaga and Tennessee. But we saw 3 teams picking them with pick and roll. Constantly picking them with pick and roll.
And they were unsuccessful.
They were partially successful for 5 minutes.
Till he figured it out.
It was over. And I keep telling people this. His mental acuity is so great that he can adjust to what you're doing. He can adjust to see what you're getting yourself into. And a lot of people do not understand how important mental acuity is. And obviously, he's not going to come into the NBA being this really good defender. But with his IQ, his feel for the game, his awareness, I truly believe you give him about 4 years, you're going to see a lot of Jokic. You're going to see a lot of Marc Gasol.
Yeah.
I think his defense has a high ceiling.
Yeah.
I think his offense has a high floor.
Yeah.
And that's how I see him. And I believe when I hear people talk about him, because even when I listen to you talk about him, you're specifically talking about the pick and roll.
Yeah.
You're specifically that, like, the pick and roll is everything. He is special. And he's elite at that. I think he's an elite movement big. He's elite at that. To be honest with you, the person he reminds me of is Montrezl Harrell. But Montrezl Harrell, instead of explosiveness, he uses size and length.
Yeah.
And so that's who he reminds me of. Because Montrezl Harrell also really good at his screen, and he'll clean your clock. But Montrezl Harrell ain't Zach Edey. He ain't 7'5". He ain't 300 pounds.
And the thing about Edey that's special that people don't realize is a lot of players, in order to clear space, they have to lower their shoulder. They have to do extra things to clear space. He's found a unique way to use his body. Like, after he sets the screen and he goes into that Gortat and he posts up, that first hit that he gives to you, he's not really lowering his shoulder. He's not really doing anything extra. He's just putting his body up against you, and it clears so much ground in space.
And you said the best name, Gortat. That's who he set screens like.
Yeah.
I used to be a season ticket holder to the Wizards. And I used to live in DC. And Gortat cleaned people's clocks. Edey's better than Gortat at screening. And he's way better at rolling. He's way better. And Gortat would even tell you he did a disservice to John Wall. He didn't roll with the passion he should have.
Yeah.
And a lot of that just comes down to jealousy and just not having the great functionality in the locker room that you probably should have. But Gortat knew that he probably ruined the chance of him being a much more highly recognized player if he would have been rolling harder. If you watched the games, you would have saw this
when he was in Orlando. He was a part of that good Orlando team, but he was a backup center
to Dwight. Yeah.
He used to come in and really good minutes. So I always loved Gortat.
And we talked about, me and you love the pick and roll. But I think the most effective thing he has, and I hear no one talking about him, is his low post movement game. I'm the only one that's talking about it. I've looked everywhere. I think his low post movement, I think he's the only person that did it that's doing it as well as he can do it since Shaq.
Yeah.
Since Shaq. And I know Shaq is way more effective as a big man in regards to being the post. Like, you know, you can't let Shaq get the ball. If he gets the ball, it's a wrap.
I mean, and let's be honest, it's just prettier. He's a guy from the North. He got a little bit of different swagger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Shaq has a different swagger and things like that. So I think sometimes people confuse aesthetic and what is actually happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sorry, but that's my word.
Fine.
Yeah, but so here's what I say when it comes down to it. I think the movement is way harder to stop than people think it is. because I think they say NBA guys are bigger, they're stronger. Man, that dude's movement is serious.
And how much
and college basketball swallowed that whistle a lot on him. Because they said if we really refereed him the way it should have been ref, he would foul those guys out in 5 minutes. Everybody. And you saw what he was doing to Klingling.
And you talk about functional strength, and I think that's another thing that's underrated. How strong are players when they decide to make a movement? And in tandem, how do other players handle that functional strength when that movement happens? And that's what you're seeing in college a lot, where he would make his movement and the referees would literally let the other player put 2 hands on him and dig their feet into the ground just to stop him from doing what he needs to do. That just won't happen in the NBA. That's not good ball.
It will not happen. And I think a lot of fans think he's not a good post player. So I think a lot of fans just think that he's just big for nothing. But that movement is hard because ultimately it's about IQ. It's about understanding leverage, about understanding, okay, where I'm at under the basket. How is this guy trying to defend me? Oh, he's got a really good position on me, on the elbow. Okay, I'm going to flash, repost again. And now you got to deal with the fact that you're a little tired now because I just waited on you for just a few minutes. I just waited for you 2-3 seconds there, and I'm heavy. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to continue seeing this possession by possession in the game. You're going to get tired. And the one thing about Zach Edey we haven't talked about, it's not just his stamina that's great. It's the fact that he gets better with more time. Like his screen is better to the screens early.
I got the perfect example. The way he plays the game is very reminiscent to how Derrick Henry plays football.
Boom. That I was thinking of running back. Like he's like that. Yeah, you're right. That's how the screens get better as the game goes on. He almost like when he feels you're tired, he weighs on you. He weighs on you even more. And if you notice, a lot of people get in foul trouble with him. Not in the first half sometimes, but in the second half, some get in trouble with him in the first half too because they can't guard him. But for some of the people that can guard him, like Klingling, he got in foul trouble in the second half.
Yeah.
Because it was just too much.
He was just lucky that his teammates
were way better.
Yeah. And the other thing that people don't talk about is how he looks in the NBA offense. We didn't really see Purdue utilize the dunker spot much at all.
No,
but imagine trying to handle him in a dunker spot because
they did use him in a dunker spot his sophomore year, and he got a lot of lobs.
So I think in the dunker spot, even if he's not getting those lobs, with guard players getting downhill and attacking, when you have to lead and help, and now you have to depend on a wing or somebody else to come and box this guy out, it's a mismatch. Like it's something that you have to prepare for. I think that's what it's going to be for him. It's going to be those things that people look at and they don't really think to be that big of a deal in the game. He's going to make them a big deal because of how effective he is at. I seen a highlight clip of Zubac today and all of the shots that he took in the playoffs. And it's just, when you picture Zach Edey as the person doing those things, you realize how difficult that is for one player to handle over a 48-minute stretch of games. Yeah, 48 minutes. How can they handle that consistently? Even if he just plays 25 minutes, that's 25 minutes of having to use your brute strength to keep this guy off the boards, to handle this guy screening you, to tag this guy and try to fight to get in front of him at 7'5", 300 pounds. It's not as easy as people are making it seem. People struggle doing that with Jonas Valanciunas. People struggle doing that with Zubac. People even struggle doing that with Brandon Clark, for God's sake.
And we're talking, and the reason why Brandon Clark, I'm glad Brandon Clark, because even though he's undersized, what is he that Zach Edey is? Relentless.
Yeah.
And what are the other two names that aren't? They're not relentless. Zubac's not relentless. Yeah. Jonas Valanciunas is not relentless. And I've heard comparisons to Jonas Valanciunas, and the mistakes that people continue to make is they watch Zach Edey they think of Zach Edey as a post-up player. And they see that he's limited as a post-up. They compare him to Valanciunas is way more skilled. And so they just can't see the transition. The reason why he's effective is because he does 90% of his work before he touches the ball.
Yes.
When people realize we are talking about an inverse Klay Thompson, then people will realize why we are so high on him.
They need to go back and watch Zach Edey when he played with Jaden Ivey, and he played with players that were actually NBA functional, and Travion Williams, things like that. They need to go on and look at those reps and see what those reps look like, and then understand that he's 3 to 4 times better than that now.
Man, I don't think people get it, man. I think people, the biggest misconceptions is, here's one thing here. Everyone tells you that he's smart, but I don't think people understand how smart he is. When I watch possession by possession basketball, he's elite in terms of his IQ, his feel for the game, and his awareness. He's elite. Now, I'm not saying he's elite right now in the NBA at those things, but I'm saying as a college player, he was elite. Talk about him. It's always posted. Everybody we done called out. Well, you know, the NBA only posted up. The average post-up is 4.2 times a game. The PPP for post-ups is 98 post-up. It's the PPP for post-ups. Yeah, the post-ups a little high. It's like 1.03 in the playoffs. It's just a post-up. It's not that big of a deal. No one posts up like that no more. We're not in the 2010s where Zach Randolph's posting or Al Jefferson's posting 20 times a game. It's not like that. I hear all this discussion about the post-up, and I keep thinking in my head, his biggest thing isn't just the poster, it's the move, it's the positioning, it's the low post movement. And if he gets you under the rim, you're gonna foul him, or he's gonna finish over you. And I want to show you this video. This is a video. I want to show you this video, okay?
Yes.
All right. Which screen can you see? Am I sharing my screen right now?
Yeah, you are.
Am I sharing the full screen, or am I just sharing the screen?
You were sharing the full screen, but now you're back to.
Okay. So this is what I want to show you right here.
You were.
Okay. So that means that I'm not sharing anymore. All right. I want to share the full screen. Okay. Are you able to see my full screen?
Yeah. I see your scouter report.
All right. Perfect. All right.
And then I see the AI thing over top of it.
Yeah, this isn't the one I want. Perfect. This is what I'm looking. This is a classic play that you still see to this day in the NBA. This is Zach Edey all day. Yeah. Tell me this isn't something you're going to see Zach Edey do in the NBA. Because he does this in college all the time.
And seal.
Straight down seal.
And when he doesn't get it,
he just
to the dunker spot.
He reposts.
Yeah. He dunker spot, or he can repost.
Look at this. Look at this. This is not Zach Edey.
Yes.
And people keep saying, well, he won't do as much posting up. Joel Embiid, the reason why you don't see Jokic or Joel Embiid doing it to that high rate is because that's not necessarily their game.
And most of the times, he's beating the other big down the floor. If you watch Zach Edey, there's a lot of times he beats the other big down the floor, steals a smaller player, and finishes over top of him.
Zach Edey is too quick. And that's going to drive people crazy when they hear me say that. But Zach Edey is too quick. I want to show you something here. This is Zach Edey's speed spark. He has a 72nd and 129th best speed spark.
Is that in NBA history?
Yes. For people that the units that's been tracked. So it's really like the last 25 years.
Okay.
Let's see. I think from 2000 to 2024. If you look at someone like Dwight Howard, 95%. Let's just go Alexander Sarr, 90%. Just think about somebody who's a freak athlete in the NBA.
Zion Williams? Why?
Yeah, he didn't do the combine.
Oh, he just the combine.
Let's do Josh Smith. Josh Smith.
Let's do Andrew Wiggins.
I don't think Wiggins did the combine. No. That was the time the players didn't do the combine.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who a monster that.
Look right here. D Wade, 88 percentile. Jimmy Butler, 93 percentile. This is actually what stood out because Jimmy didn't look good. Jimmy didn't look great in terms of his tape, but his combine, that 6'6" without shoes, 222, with that size and with that beast spark, with his work ethic, he turned himself into an all-star.
Yeah.
I don't think people understand the dude's athletic.
What about Rudy Gobert?
I don't think he's that high. 81%, which is good. Which is good athlete. That's not bad. Klingler is at 90%. Of course, really, he's a great athlete. 90%.
Yes.
So we know he's a great athlete. We can see it. I think Klingler can do between the leg dunks in an open setting. Like he's athletic.
Look at my guy, Adam Boner.
Adam's a freak athlete.
Yeah, I love
Adam's a freak athlete. But I always say the one thing about this is Azubuike kind of cheats this because he kind of cheated his standard so he could do the vertical. He had a 40 vertical, and on top of that, he had really poor lateral movements. Yes, it was like bad. Let's look at. I don't think Boban's in here, but just somebody who's like Andre was a phenomenal athlete at the combine, and it translated because if you watch this tape in college, he was bad.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. A lot of these translated. They probably weren't superstars like they were expected to be.
But a lot of them sucked in college. A lot of them sucked in college.
Yeah.
With the exception of Azubuike and Cockburn, who were good in college. But these guys didn't have no lateral movement. That's what got them. They didn't have lateral movement. But we saw they were athletic even in college.
Yes.
But if you look at all these guys.
A lot of these guys have had pretty long NBA careers.
Man, Greg Oden.
That would have been one. But a lot of them positionally are undersized. Mm-hmm. Like I see Jarnell Stokes up there, 6'7" center. Yeah. I see like a lot of these guys are undersized. Blake Griffin.
Look, Bam Adebayo's in here. And you know what's crazy is people talk about I can't wait till Bam kills this dude. And I'm like, he's just as athletic as Bam.
Yeah.
And people can't see it, man. They look at the fluidity. Fluidity just destroys their mind. I call it the LeBron versus Jordan effect. People who love Jordan love the fact that he's the best fluidity of all time. Whereas they completely ignore the fact that LeBron is a dominant player. It's hard for them to accept that LeBron is really skilled. He's really talented. He does have some form of fluidity for his size, but at the end of the day, the dude is 6'10", 270. He ain't really built like that.
Yeah. I definitely agree. It's been
I'm gonna send you the link. I'm not
gonna It underscores what I've been saying in regards to his athleticism. In regards to him, I think being more athletic than Klingler. But I think people not really seeing that because he's 7'5".
The fluidity, man. It's the fluidity.
Yeah.
It's the poor fluidity. And the poor fluidity does have major effect. He doesn't a lot of people call that partial athleticism. That's because essentially his athleticism functionally is not there. So he can't really have the self-creation. Like how often do you see Edey just go off the rip and just dribble? And you're not going to see that self-creation. You're not going to see that it just doesn't look good. Like even when he dribbles, he actually looks better when he dribbles at chest high and dribbles down than when he dribbles down. When Shaq dribbles, he dribbles down so he can put his force and dunk on you. Edey, when he does it chest high, he's more functional. So it's so weird. It's weirdly weird when you watch Zach Edey play. His fluidity is so bad.
But something else that's not talked about is these type of players who have had that much success at a college level and not really understanding that these guys are going to class. They have things to do. And now you're putting them in a position where they've been drafted and their entire life and being is centered around basketball. Their training, everything is basketball. And I just think you put Zach Edey in that type of environment, which is why I'm sure he's going to be a great pro, than what he already is.
It's the mental game. It's the mental part that he gets to spend time on. It's not the physical. It's the mental. And I keep telling people, where you're underestimating Zach Edey is his movement skills and his mental. And on those things, it's like you're missing on Angel's defense and you're missing on her off-ball, her movement. If you spend so much time talking about how much can Angel shoot or can she create this off the dribble, if you spend too much time focusing on the wrong thing with Angel, you're going to miss
the player. You miss
the player. And if that's a player, that's your fault. That player shows you, hey.
Yeah.